Hi, it's Todd from Snap Fresh Farm, and I'm coming to you again on another vlog, and I'm going to go over some things today about, if you've seen my other videos, you've seen that I'm working in hydroponics and I'm also working in dirt or soil, whatever you want to call it. What I'm doing in the soil is I've got a mix of soil that I've put together from a local hydroponic store that also sells soil, and a very good mix of soil. But what I'm going to show you today is how I water the soil and the plants that are in the soil. I won't talk about the hydroponics part. You can watch that on my other videos anytime you want. But I want to go into what I do to water the soil and what I'm actually adding into the water that makes the plants continue to grow even in a very shallow amount of soil. I'm running my plants in about 2.5 to 3 inches maximum of soil, and some of them have been growing in that for over 3 or 4 months, and I'm getting very good results. Continuously getting salad greens out of those planters, which are just these bins that you see. These are clear bins. In the future I'm going to go with something that's probably not clear, but one of the things that is an advantage to using the clear bins, you can actually see your soil at the bottom, see how the water is at the bottom, see how your roots are growing, and see your roots as well. So that is an advantage that I find when I'm watering. I can actually tell how much water is in the bins. Is there too much water in the bins? Is there water sitting at the bottom, which I don't want? And that gives me an indication of when I should water these bins. As things are growing, starting off small, I've got some bins that have very small growth of lettuce in them from maybe about a week or so old. Those I don't water as much, and I also don't put as much nutrient in those. I put a very small amount of nutrient mixed with the water. But today I want to go over with how much nutrient I'm putting in a gallon of water and how I water these plants. So let's go. I'll show you. If you've seen any of my other videos, you'll notice that I plant a lot of the part of what I'm planting is in soil. I have them in 10-20 trays. I've got them in these bins that I've bought from stores, and I've got about, like I said, I've got only about 2.5 to 3 inches maximum of soil growing in these bins, and the plants are growing very well. This is kale. I've got lettuce growing here, and I've got chard over here. All of them have been growing for weeks. In fact, the kale and the chard have been growing for months, actually. This rainbow chard down here is in a 10-20 tray. It's in a very, very shallow amount of dirt. We're looking about 1.5 inches to maximum of 2 inches of dirt. And then I've also got lettuce down here that I planted about a week ago. It's growing in just a turkey bin, or turkey tin, and that's growing pretty well. I probably won't continue to use the turkey bins, but I threw these seeds in because I had them. Wanted to see how that went. So today I want to concentrate on watering and give you an idea. If you're going to do something like this, you can't give too much water to these plants because you'll start souping your soil, and your soil will get very, very wet. It won't grow very well. Your plants will start dying. You'll start to see lots of bugs. We'll start to see all kinds of things growing in your soil which you don't want. So what you want to do is you want to regulate the amount of water and also the amount of nutrient that we're putting into these plants. So for watering, what I do is I have a gallon jug. This is just your typical gallon jug that you put juice in or whatever you want that you would get in a store. This is very handy because it is a gallon. It's a good jug for mixing, and it's big enough where I don't have to worry about continually filling and refilling, and it gets me most of the water I need for the plants that I'm growing. And what I'm doing is, with this jug, I'm taking and adding to it. I've got some Maxi Grow General Hydroponics Maxi Grow plant food. It's a 10-5-14 mix. I got it from my local store called PA Hydroponics. They've told me that this is good for lettuce and growing the greens that I'm growing, things like chard, lettuce, and kale, etc. So what I do is, in the gallon jug, I'm taking about a teaspoon of this, mixing it into the gallon, and sometimes I'm mixing less than that, anywhere from a half a teaspoon to a teaspoon, mixing it into the gallon of water, adding nutrients into this water, and then mixing that up and creating a nutrient mix in the water. And then what I'm doing is I'm adding about a teaspoon of Epsom salts into the water, and Epsom salts helps things grow as well, and enables the water to uptake the nutrients. I find that that's working out pretty good for the salads, salad greens, and that's working. Then what I do is I check, the other thing I check is my pH to see if my pH level is not too high. I'm checking my pH with my pH meter, and I'll check the water level for pH, and let's just check it and see what it looks like. So my pH for this water is actually running at 7.2, 7.5, which is very, very high. You don't want your pH being at 7.7, especially for salad greens. So what I'm doing is I'm putting some pH down in the water, and I've got my pH down from my kit, from my pH checking kit. The orange is the pH down, and what I do is, let me put this water down here. I take the little pipette that comes with the kit. If you've got the kit, you'll notice a little pipette, and I open up my pH down. Take pH down, and I just put enough in the pipette, about this much in the pipette for the gallon, and I find that works out per gallon, running at about 7. That usually brings me down. Mix it into the water, like so. Put this back. So I mix my water with the pH down, and I let that usually stir it. Let that stir up. I'm not going to do that right now. Let's just measure it without stirring and see what it is. Be interesting to see. But that should bring me down to about 6. Yeah, I'm measuring 6.1. 6 point. Well, let's see. Mix it up a little bit here. Yeah, it's bringing me down between 6.2 and 6.3, which is right about where I want it to be. If you don't get down to about 6.2 to 6.5, keep adding a little tiny bit more pH down and get your water to a nice pH level about between 6 and 6.5. After that point, mixed nutrient, put a teaspoon of nutrient or a little bit less than a teaspoon depending on what you're watering, and then put my pH down in there. This is now nutrient water, and what we're doing is, because we've got the dirt in the small containers, that nutrient mix of the water does very well with addition into the dirt. All the plants grow very well, and we're seeing very good results from that. So that's what I'm doing on a daily basis for watering. And then what I did was, for watering, I don't want to use this huge container, so I have a smaller container. It's just a yogurt container that I've washed out really good, and then I take this yogurt container, fill that, and then I'm filling my my plants using the smaller container. Makes it a whole lot easier. It also makes it a lot easier to get in between the plants and get water distributed between the plants. Let me put this water down. And what I'm finding is, for these bins, I'm using about one of these containers. Now this is a 32-ounce container. I fill it up about 3/4 of the way, and then what I do is I water between the plants. I try not to get the nutrient on top of the plants, because a lot of, you'll end up with some white on your plants after it's dissolved off your plants. So try to get it in between the plants, in the soil, spread it into the soil, and water your plants with about one of these containers of 32 ounces. If you're using a bin that's somewhere around this size, and these bins are 15 and 3/4 wide by about 21 inches deep in length, and then Like I said, they're 6.5 high, but we're only using about 2.5 to 3 inches of dirt in it and soil. So that's how I'm mixing, what I'm putting into the water to make sure that the water is ready for, it's nutrient based and water, and it's ready for watering the plants. Now, plants that have been growing for a very long time, things like this kale, the lettuce here is now at a point where it's fine, and also any of these larger plants that are growing in dirt, putting that much nutrient in is good, and it seems to work very well. I'm no scientist, so don't take my word as peer-reviewed scientific evidence or anything like that. But what I'm finding is that the greens are growing very well, and it's a good, from what I'm finding, it's very good, and it works very well. The other thing is, with the smaller plants, when you start planting, if you're putting seeds in dirt and they start up, don't use nutrient in your water. Just get your pH to a nice level. Don't use any nutrient until they start actually growing and you've got leaves growing and they're starting to come out of the soil and they start to look like an actual plant. I would wait until second set of leaves before I'd actually start putting nutrient in. For those plants, I'm actually putting a little less nutrient when they get to that point, and then you start moving them up. As they start to become mature plants, then you put in the normal amount of nutrient, about a teaspoon with a gallon of water. It seems to be working out pretty good. And then what I end up with is, with this amount of plants and these amount of soil in the bins, I end up with two of the gallon containers. I end up filling 2 of those, and then I end up with one of these 32-ounce containers per bin that I'm actually watering. One of the things that I've seen is that some days they'll come down, depending on the temperature down here. Sometimes the soil is still pretty wet. I can actually look at the bottom of the bins, and you'll see at the bottom of the bins that there's dark soil, which is wet soil. If you start seeing that, just hold off on your watering. Start seeing the soil get drier on the top and drier on the bottom, then you can start watering again. I find that it's about 3 days before I actually do any watering, and it's working out very well. So that's what I do for watering. That's general maintenance per day as far as watering and watering the plants that are in the soil. Fortunately for the hydroponic plants, they don't need any water every day because they're just going by themselves in water, and that's working very well for them. So those I do change the water every 4 weeks. I change the full hydroponic 27-gallon tub that I have, take the water out of that, drain all the water, clean everything out, and then start with a whole new batch of water. I check the pH on that first before I start it up again, and before any of the water goes through the system to the plants. Check my pH, get my pH to a nice level of about 6 and 6.5, and then I put in nutrient, putting in somewhere around a 3/4 of a teaspoon per gallon in that tub. It's a 27-gallon tub. I end up putting in it's about 4 tablespoons for the 27 gallons when I'm done, and that seems to be working very well. Plants are working, they're getting watered well, the nutrient is a good level, and things are growing very well. I also put Epsom salts into that 27-gallon tub, and that I measure out depending on how many gallons, and that's about the same, about a teaspoon per gallon, so it's about the same measurement with the nutrient and the Epsom salts. So like I said, I'm not a scientist, none of this is peer-reviewed, none of this is evidence-based. It's what I've been doing, what I've been learning from working with the hydroponics and the soil, growing in the soil. So I'd love to hear feedback. If anybody has any feedback that they want to give me. If you're a scientist, please let me know if I'm doing the wrong thing so that I can yank this YouTube off. If not, then things seem to be working for me, and I think they'll work for most people. Everybody has to experiment on their own. They all have their own conditions and variables. I've got my own conditions and variables down here in the basement, but one of the things about being in a basement is you don't have as many variables. Your temperature is pretty standard. You don't have bugs eating your plants like crazy, and you can grow lettuce and other greens pretty much without any issues, and it just keeps growing. In my other videos, I've gone through a lot of that. Please feel free to subscribe to Snap Fresh Farm on YouTube, and please watch my other videos. I hope that they're helpful. I hope that this one's been helpful. So have a good day. Take care. Bye.